All right, folks, welcome to the Strong for Life podcast. Today I'm joined by world-renowned strength coach Dan John for round two, and I'm really excited to jump in and talk all things strength and conditioning, but also just physical health, mental health, and a financial health as well for the Strong for Life Summit. So, Dan, thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to jump on today.
Absolute pleasure. It's good to see you again. Yeah.
Great, mate. So before we hit record, you were saying that you just come back from traveling in Europe.
Yeah. I was in England and Denmark. Yeah.
Great. So one thing I think would be a good place to start with is you've traveled a lot throughout your career and would love to know like how you prioritize your health and your fitness when you're on the road, when you're traveling a lot.
Let's do it. Let's start it and let's get going. That's a good question.
So how do you prioritize your health and fitness when you're on the road?
Well, the first thing you have to do, I think, is, there is, it's funny because it's mental. It's the attitude side. I really think it's important to start if I'm leaving next Wednesday, I'm going to start preparing. Like, I'll probably do a first pack a week ahead of time, especially on extended long, like it for me, a European tour. Because by doing those simple small things, by making sure I have my passport where it needs to be, I have my international power pack right there. I've got this thing and I've got that thing. If I have a week to deal with something I forgot, like I always travel with various medicines and stuff. I think when you travel, you should always travel with an allergy medicine. I always travel with ear medicine, for a little bit of ear itch, because sometimes when you travel, you pick up some weird stuff. Obviously, stomach stuff. I mean, I always travel with bags of ginger tea. I always travel with, I think it's called Imodium. I always travel with Pepto-Bismol. I always travel with some very low end, like aspirin or something like that, so that if you do get a little sick, I also bring the really heavy duty flu fighters, also those big bags that have just about everything in them, and because and so I'm being very proactive before I even get started. For equipment, I always travel with two pieces of equipment. I always travel with Brett Contreras's glute loop, and I always travel with the mini band. With the glute loops, I do lots and lots of hip thrusts and that exercise called the clamshell. With the mini bands, very often I'll just you put them around your socks and you do that kind of weird looking monster walk, that little and you do a couple of shuffles like that. If you do the hip thrust and the clamshell, a few shuffles, and it doesn't, I mean, if you want to do some press up, push ups, or whatever, I don't necessarily need those anymore. But it tends for me to undo the damage of those long flights I have to take to get to Europe. Um, Once I get to Europe, it's actually pretty easy for me because of the way the flights work out of Salt Lake City. I tend to get to Europe like 10 or 11 in the morning. And okay, it's a long day, but I go to the hotel, I put my bags in, and then I become, the first day I'm there, I am a walk around tourist. A couple weeks back, when I was in England, I got to Twickenham and I walked to Richmond, which is the borough right next to it. I looked at all the Ted Lasso sites. I climbed the hill. I kind of toured around the place. I went to a bookstore. I wandered around. I got a 9 mile walk in the day I got there. Now I was jet lagged, but by walking 9 miles, by doing my glute work, by doing my monster walks, by the time I went to bed that night, and I went to bed early, I slept 14 hours and I undid the jet lag. And so you have to prepare yourself on long trips for the impact of the flight, the impact of the Uber ride, the impact of when you check in, if you go to a German hotel, check-in is at 3. If you're there at 2:58, they won't check you in. you know, so you have to prepare yourself to sit in the lobby while you're waiting. Okay. Uh, you have to have medicines. You have to, so for me, my first line of defense is I pack early. I double check everything I pack. Um, there's an old saying about travel. You pack everything you think, then take out half your clothes and double the amount of money you're going to spend. When I was up in Denmark, I found this. It's interesting because Danish food and Danish clothes really suit me well. The food in Denmark makes me clearly healthier. And the clothes, for whatever, I don't know what they do in Denmark, but I bought a whole bunch of these V-necks in Denmark, and they fit better than any shirt I've ever seen in my life. So I came home with 12 of these shirts. Okay. Because so so that's how that's how I travel. Okay. So now, so packing early helps. Knowing that you're going to have issues with jet lag, I undo jet lag personally with glute loop and a long walk. Okay. A lot of people I know try to deal with jet lag with alcohol, and maybe it'll get you to sleep faster, but then that might have unsettled sleep. So now I mean, there's nothing, I'm not being against alcohol. I'm just saying that. So I like the way I plan things. Uh, every day I am on the road, I always do my glute loops and my monster walks. That's just a given for me. I try to get extra walking in. If I am working in a gym, when I get in the gym, I generally hang when I get into, you just heard that crack right there. I generally hang when I get into a gym. I used to train a lot when I would go on the road. Now I find, I'm 67, so I don't have the wiggle room I did at 47 to, get off a flight, Olympic lift and be able to handle it. Now I have to be a little smart about it. This last trip, I was also with Tim Anderson, and of course, he teaches original strength. So in our workshops, I was doing 4 hours a day of mobility work with Tim. And I now have this new habit of doing at least 10 minutes of original strength every day. My sauna is right here. That's my sauna. And so every morning I do a 10-minute, for sure, 10-minute original strength in the sauna. But those things like neck nods and those neck rotations and he calls them rocks, and the cross crawl work, and just really that combination with the glute work, with walking. When I got home after 3 weeks on the road, I had a press workout and I didn't lose any strength at all. So if you can go 3 weeks without pressing, presses and squats, at least for me, seem to drop off quickly. But that little combination of the original strength movements, the glute work, and the walking kept me healthy. I do think you have to plan when you travel for some problems with food, for sure. This last time I was in England, I was a little surprised. First off, I was shocked at how expensive everything is in England now. I was really, I mean, compared to
More
Denmark.
expensive than US, do you think?
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Whoa.
And well, it depends on where you are in the United States. I mean, we have
Yep.
um, that's, but I still found some reasonable places. There's top of my head, I can't remember the name of this franchise, but it's from South Africa. And when I try to eat there at least once a day, because I can get an assortment of 8, 10 vegetables easily in a meal, plus, fairly well-made chicken. I don't remember the name of it, but so I'm very conscious of my eating on the road, because if all you're going to do is eat, you know, uh, fish and chips the whole time, it's going to have an impact on your gut. Which isn't necessarily a good or bad thing, but it is there is going to be a catch up. There is going to be you have to pay the piper, somewhere along the line. But thanks for asking that question, because it's something I take very seriously. And also, too, another thing, I try to travel with just one carry-on bag, no matter how long I'm going to a location. So I think about that kind of thing, how to load everything into one bag. It's almost for me, it's almost a contest for me. course, if you know me, everything's a contest, but that's how I do it. But thanks for asking, Connor. It's a good question. Thank you.
Do you have rules around like time that you'll be willing to go away for, like from a disruption of your schedule and everything like that?
I like to have a lot of lead time on, like, for example, if I'm going to go away for a month, let's see, last year I went away for 1 month. I've been out of the United States up to 2.5 months a year. And I gotta tell you, you got to keep those. If you go twice a year, you got to keep those months away from each other, maybe like June and November or something like that. Because the number of things you have to catch up to in your home, in your family life, in your business life after being gone for a month. Now, the nice thing is now, of course, with the internet, most of what I can do business wise, I can keep up with. But all I can really do is keep up. I can't really, roll ahead very much. Uh, I need a while. Now I have years ago, it's funny, it was 10 years ago, I think. I got a call from Strong First. Their CEO, Mark Toomey, said, uh, Strong First didn't have any masters who were healthy enough to teach a certification, which I thought was hilarious, because all these fitness groups always struggle because the people who teach get hurt, doing all this crazy stuff. So he said to me on a Monday, he asked me if I could be, no, maybe it wasn't a Monday. It might have been a Friday. He asked me if I could be in Belfast the following weekend to teach a kettlebell certification. And I got to tell you, there's not many people in the world who can rally up a plane ticket and go over and get out to another country. But I will say, the best part of that trip was my daughter was studying in Spain at the time, and she flew over and did the certification with me. So that was a win-win. So if I can do something like that, if I can see my daughters or see you or see my friends, it's a lot easier for me to make a real quick turnaround, if that makes sense. With this
Hmm.
last trip, because I had Tim and I both came over from the United States, that just took a little bit more time. And it was also a multi-country thing. So, organizing the from here to there stuff is just a little complex. It's not bad, it's just a little complex. Um, One thing I think if you're a coach or of any kind, I think if you apply the tools you use in your career to travel and business, it's the toolkit you learn from coaching is a great toolkit for business and travel and life and life itself. Um, the biggest lesson I keep relearning, Connor, in coaching is what Coach Mon told me in 1977, 47 years ago. He said, little and often over the long haul. And a lot of people miss that last part, the long haul. So for me, uh, if I start my packing a couple of weeks early with, making sure if sometimes things break or, you know, nowadays, I don't know if this is an audible or a video too, but if I need to bring this silly thing on a road trip with me, that's an adapter, eh, you know, very often I'll buy another one just for the trip, just so I'll have one at home and one for the road. The adapter, I have to either go to the store and get one or buy one online or whatever you do. But it's really nice to buy the adapter 3 weeks ahead of time instead of 3 hours ahead of time. So it's constantly the same lessons, little and often over the long haul. So when I am going to dedicate myself to a long road trip, I try to work on that road trip literally every single day for a month or two going into it. Nothing crazy. It can be something as simple as, like, on this last trip, I had packed all my shirts and all my underwear. Oh my gosh, it was probably 2 weeks ahead of time. I had my the little bag was completely filled, and I really tightly folded all my V-neck shirts and my Saks underwear, and just had this little bag about this big with just stuffed in there. But the nice thing was I didn't have to worry, I just survived for a week or two without those shirts and made a go of it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think just there's so much anxiety and worry uh, from a lot of the stuff I think that you're just saying around planning and preparing would probably avoid. Uh, with so you jumped out there, Dan. Um, but it's have you seen an increase in the kind of last minute way people are over the last however many years? Do you think it's getting worse?
Well, when I got back from the Middle East, I was really struggling. I'd lost 40 pounds, almost 18, 19 kilos to a liver parasite. And I was very sick. And so one of my friends who was really helpful at the time, he loaned me his copy of something called Lead the Field by Earl Nightingale. And you can listen to it now on YouTube, but at the time, I think originally I had cassettes. And then the next time I bought it, it was CDs. And the next time I saw it, it was live streaming. So I've purchased this in several different styles, but one of the big points Earl Nightingale makes is basically to be at the top of any field, to be in the top 5% in any field, it's pretty simple. 5% of Americans exercise. 5% of Americans floss their teeth every day, according to my dentist. 5% of Americans retire with enough money so that they don't need any help at all. So, 5% of high school graduates in America, only 5% of high school graduates in America continue reading into their adult life. So what does it take to be in the top 5%? Well, okay. Floss your teeth, exercise, read a damn book. I mean, what does it take to be in the top 5%? Now to answer your question, 1 in 20 people prepare for trips like I do. 19 out of 20 are throwing crap in a bag the morning they're flying to another country. One in 20 people travel to Europe from the United States. 19 out of 20 probably never leave the radius, a 10-mile radius of their house. So for me, Connor, this isn't the nicest thing that I've ever said, but I'm starting to pull myself away from the 19 out of 20 because as my daughter says, I just can't. Okay, I'm tired. Congratulations, you've beaten me down. You've broken me down. I no longer think that I can help everybody. So yeah, procrastination is something 19 out of your 20 are. I mean, just ask any. Are you married, Connor?
No, no.
But ask any bride, how many people RSVP to the wedding? And instantly the bride will go, oh, because most people don't RSVP. Most people don't. Here, this is a wedding announcement for a friend of mine. Most people don't read the wedding announcements. Most people don't follow most people don't do things they're supposed to. It's just, so yeah, I would say more and more people procrastinate because there's more and more people. And if the population of the planet continues to explode as it is, we're going to have more procrastinators. So there you go. But so for me, I work at the university, and even me in my situation, sometimes I become numb to this overriding truth that the bulk of people don't do what my university athletes do, if that makes sense. My athletes get really good grades. They're very good academically. They work extremely hard in the weight room. They work extremely hard throwing the discus shot, hammer, and javelin. They care about their nutrition. They care about everything. But I have to keep reminding myself that most of the people they sit in the classroom with just float through life like a butterfly. Just flit, 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 flit. I know it's negative to say that and probably a little bit jerky, but it's true.
when did you start? Like when I talk to any coach now, like, your name comes up basically as like the person to, if you want to learn more, like your name will always come up in conversations.
Thank you.
When, wow, this is true. Um, when, like, I love this compounding. This is, 1% better, and then all of a sudden you're like exponentially ahead of everyone. You're
Yes.
67 now.
Yeah.
When did you see like things really starting to pull away? Maybe from a health standpoint with people around you, but also maybe when you started seeing, becoming one of the biggest names in the fitness industry as well. Like when did all that happen?
Yeah. Well, it kind of stunned me. I didn't know that. So I didn't know any of this because it, my editor, Laree Draper, said she wanted me to go to Perform Better in Long Beach. And I walked into into the auditorium to listen to a speaker, and it's interesting because the speaker was really famous at the time, and I guarantee you've never heard of him, but we'll move on. Uh, and I, the speaker told me later on it was the strangest thing because everyone started walking over to ask me questions. So, it's 10 minutes before the speaker talks, and his whole crowd is around me. And I said to Laurie, I go, huh, what's going on here? I kind of go, is this normal? She goes, no, you're kind of a big deal. And I'm like, how do people even know my work? I didn't realize that I didn't realize that I would write this article or I would do this thing over here. I didn't realize that the internet was, echoing that stuff out. I mean, it's like, but you don't know. And then I really got a sense of things is when my daughter she spent some time over in Dublin. It's a little place in Ireland. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but it's,
Never heard of it.
what county are you from, Connor? Where are you from?
County.
Oh, shoot. Just popped off. We'll pick right up. It's okay.
All right. Sorry about that, Dan.
And what county are you from?
From County Clare.
Oh, Claire, that's right. And last time I talked to you, didn't know my friend Paul Dunn, did you?
No, Lahinch, right?
Then, yeah, okay. Make sure we're recording and we're still on. Oh, okay, good.
Yeah.
Um,
But yeah, we
so
were
my
talking about that, like that compounding
yeah,
impact of just putting out great work consistently.
okay. Well, let me finish the story though. So my daughter's in Dublin, and this guy sits down and they start talking, and they decide this is a while ago. They decide to become friends on Facebook. He's trying to pick up my daughter, and all of a sudden they see that they have a common friend, me. And the guy goes, how do you know about Dan John? And she goes, he's my dad. He turned instantly into a fanboy. And my daughter's still mad about that. He said he didn't care about me at all anymore. All he cared about was you. I was like, oh, well, I'm sorry. But I was walking up a flight of stairs in Edinburgh one time, and someone said Dan John, and so I was in a park, Princess Diana's Park, just in Teddington, and someone walked up and said, "Excuse me, are you Dan John?" And it's strange, but I would say what helped me the most, Connor, is that uh, I, okay, I stay true to certain big principles, but I'm very willing to experiment with new ideas. And I'm going to say something. I think that makes me different in the field. Now, let me explain that. So I have these things I absolutely believe in, and I know they're true and I know they're right. But I'm also convinced that there's a good chance there's a better way to do things. A good example would be the hip thrust. Okay. Now I bumped into the hip thrust in 84. I bumped into the hip thrust in 91. But it was only until Brett Contreras explained it in a hallway at a hotel that I finally grasped the importance of it. Because the hip thrust is so fast and efficient to teach, I embraced it as one of my key exercises in the hinge family. All right, big story. My point is this. Right now, Connor, I think that 80% of what I teach and train people with is absolutely right on. The only problem is I don't know what that 80% is. I don't know which exercise in about 2 weeks, someone's going to say, throw fairy dust on something and it'll be like this new movement. I'll be like, that's so much easier to teach. I say this a lot in my workshops, Connor, is that now I teach the bear hug. You know, you put a 40-kilo bag and you walk with it like this, bear hug style. If I say squat while you're walking, you'll have a perfect squat. And so I was telling people, you know, I invented the goblet squat, but if I would have had the bear hug carry squat, I don't know if I would have had to have invented it, because it's actually more efficient than teaching the goblet squat. It's actually faster to teach, which is so I'm not getting rid of the goblet squat. I'm not, but it's just funny to say that, is that sometimes something just shows up. So to answer your question, if something new comes along, I'm able to take this new idea and not make the idea of this new exercise, this new movement, this new training thingy. I can take it, and then the first question I ask always is, what's the best thing? If it's a piece of equipment, what's the best thing I can do with this? I call that my killer app. 10 seconds. With the barbell, it's the press family, it's the squat family, it's deadlifts. You're not going to find a better tool for deadlifts than the barbell. For the kettlebell, it's the goblet squat, the swing, and the Turkish get-up. For the suspension trainer, it's the T, Y, I, and one arm rows. For the ab wheel, it's the ab wheel. Does that make sense? So the first thing, if you have a new piece of equipment, the first thing I do is I don't want to hear all your other crap. What does it do best? Best. Now, if you can't tell me what does best, it's just more stuff for my weight room. And I don't need more stuff in my weight room. Okay.
Do you get sent a lot of ideas?
Oh, you have no, yeah.
Yeah.
I say, and oh yeah, yeah. And I try to be kind sometimes, but it's just pure crap. Then, okay, so it's equipment. Just tell me what does best. And then we'll just, for a couple of weeks, we'll try it out to what it does best. And if it's an ab exercise, it's better than the ab wheel. Maybe I toss my ab wheel out and now I've moved to this. I thought the suspension trainers were nonsense until I did the single arm row, and I went, that's why you do this exercise. That makes sense. Because if you plank while you single arm row, you get a total body exercise rowing, which is, you know, because you have to stay so tight, so rigid, so tense. When it comes to other ideas, like when Tabata came up with the Tabata protocol, boy, this is 1998. I instantly went downstairs, and I can remember it as clear as can be. And I tried it out with military presses. Now, that was an absolute disaster. And then later I kept experimenting because I thought there was something about that 20 seconds on, 10 seconds off that just appealed to me at a training level. Well, ultimately I moved to the front squat on it, and that was the eureka moment. That was that aha. Once, maybe twice a month, this very, very hard 4 minutes would have a value to me as a discus thrower, Highland gamer, and Olympic lifter. So for me, I think one of the things that's helped me so much, Connor, is I have an ability to pull in new ideas. And honestly, Connor, I think it's because I know what to plug them into. I don't just take this new idea and throw out everything else we've been doing for successfully. I started lifting weights in 1965. So next year will be my 60th year lifting weights.
Wow.
So when you lift weights for
Amazing.
60 years, you kind of get a sense that certain things work. Doesn't mean they're sexy. And a lot of your clients can be like, well, look what they're doing. That's got to be more. Look. I read an article a couple of years ago, and it's been very helpful for me. there was an American TV show called The Office, based on the BBC, The Office.
Mhm.
And the show just got terrible toward the end. And the reviewer said this: when you take a periphery idea and make it central, almost always things are going to fall apart. And now it's true for the later years of The Office, but it's also true about what we do in training. So you go to, and listen, Connor, I've got the same disease that every listener has. I go to a workshop and I'm sitting there and I was like, oh, I got to do, oh, I've got it. Oh, I got to do that. Oh, 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 me. I got to do, I got it. And then you take it home and you plug it in and you you stop squatting, you stop deadlifting, you stop pressing, you stop walking, you stop eating vegetables, you stop eating protein because this new idea. And you fail miserably because what you should have done with the new idea was to put it in appropriately to where you need. So when you read my early articles, you'll notice that I think I have an ability to take an idea and make it fit alongside all the other overarching principles and ideas. You know, one of my biggest principles is the body is one piece. It comes from a guy named John Jerome in his book Staying Supple. But I believe that your O's are all one O. That's your physical, your emotional, your financial, your spiritual, your social, your whatever. All those things make you. And I make the joke all the time, if you have diarrhea, it's not a good day to max back squat, right? I mean, right? The body's one piece. If you've just had your heart broken by the love of your life, don't go out and start snatching heavy weights. And so for me, whenever I get away from something just as simple as that foundation, the body's one piece. When I move away from that, and I've done it, that's when the problems show up. Another one is I don't believe in muscles, I believe in movements. Okay, that's a big principle for me. So if you tell me that this exercise isolates and then pick up the name of a muscle, I'm not going to probably be very interested. One thing I want you to know, Connor, I have a new way of teaching, especially my throwers and any explosive athlete. You don't have 600 muscles. You have one muscle that's subdivided into 600 parts. And the idea is I want my athletes to whoosh and use the whole body in a beautifully timed movement. That will end up throwing the discus farther, popping more weights over your head than if you try to think like some people do. When people tell me that, like in the Olympic lifts, you got to pull your traps, I always think, well, you're not going to be very good in the lifts because there's a hell of a lot more going on than just shrugging your shoulders like I don't know. So that would be, I think, if I was to have a skill set, Connor, I think that's it. That I can add something new and not throw out the cliche time baby with the bathwater. Yeah.
If you could pick 10 exercises that you have to do or to program for someone forever, what would they be?
Well, when I was 14, I wrote in my journal that if I wrote 50 years from now, I wrote to my 64-year-old self, if all I did was clean and press and squat snatch, you would cover every single muscle. It's funny because my elite discus thrower, she does squat snatches and suitcase carries, which cover literally every body part. And it's weird to think that little Danny John in 1971 got it right. So I still, I would still, I've been saying clean and press and squat snatch since 1971. So let me just stick with those two. Yeah, I still think so. Now, and I said squat snatch, which is important. Obviously, one of my big things is, pick weights up off the ground, put them overhead, and carry them for time or distance. Those are three overriding principles. But when in doubt, clean and press, squat snatch, and there you go, and suitcase carry, and you've got yourself a really good program. Okay, is it perfect? Maybe not, but it's pretty damn good. Yeah.
With the overhead, like a lot of people struggle with that. Like I'm
Yep.
saying, kind of general population. So, what would you recommend for? Would you still say like, well, address those restrictions in the shoulders or the thoracic spine, and then open
Well,
yourself
and
up
the
to
other
do
thing,
it?
if you do alternate presses with dumbbells, kettlebells, I always teach people that the shoulders are a lot like all-terrain vehicles. They have independent suspension. So if barbell presses hurt your shoulders, it's real clear you've got something wrong. Same person doing alternate presses won't feel anything. So sometimes just moving to the alternate press is the answer to all these questions. And the alternate press is really underrated, I think. But yeah. So, but it's interesting what we do in this field. If somebody can't do something, we find a workaround. Whereas my thought has always been, if somebody can't do something, let's nudge them to being able to do that. Like if I'm working with somebody, and I've had some pretty serious surgeries, and one of the first things you want to do after a surgery is get up. In fact, we now know, like, you know, I was born with a condition called pistol grip hips, so I've had both hips replaced. But on my second surgery, I can remember Dr. Gibbs coming in. He reached over, he grabbed my hand, he said, "Let's go for a walk." Dude, I still had probably 10 things poking in my body, and he expected me to go for a quick walk. And he said, what the best rehab you can do is load this thing and go for a walk. And by the way, 6 months after total hip replacement, I was the only person to flip the caber at a Highland Games. So he's right.
Wow.
So, he's right.
When was that, Dan? How long ago?
5 years ago. Yeah.
Wow, amazing.
Yeah.
Um, I have a question for you. I find that I think a lot of people in the fitness industry, like I love coaching, I love fitness, it's a hobby, it's my job, it's kind of everything.
Yeah.
So when you get a significant injury, like I found I started salsa dancing, actually went salsa dancing tonight, and it's
Yeah.
it's it's fun, but it's not fitness, it's just kind of this other thing, and it's another outlet because my entire identity is the gym, my work,
Yeah.
hobby, everything. Have you struggled with that at all? Like over the years, maybe if you get a significant injury and the thing that is such a big part of your life is removed?
Yeah. When I broke this wrist in 8 pieces, my doctor, by the way, said I'd never be able to do that again. Oh, look at that. And he said I'd never be able to lift weights again. And I got to tell you, that might be the most, I don't know what causes depression, but let's say I don't know if I have let's say the DNA for depression. Okay. I don't, but I got to tell you, when he told me that, that's the first time in my life I can ever remember uh, getting that that blueness. And, and so instantly I just started thinking about ways around what the doctor told me I wouldn't be able to do. And you know what they are. You ever seen my book, Never Let Go? That's the
Yeah,
So never let go. There's a piece of art from one of my readers. He made this from the cover.
amazing.
But if you look at the cover of Never Let Go, I think this edition is in I don't I think this is Slovakian, but on the these, can you see that okay?
Yeah.
What what you don't notice is that my left hand's in a cast because my left hand's destroyed.
Whoa.
Yeah. Most people don't notice that.
No. So how old were you then?
43, something like that, maybe. It
Okay, so it was like 25, 24 years ago.
was 2001. Yeah, two. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so what I decided to do in 2002 is I would put a heavy backpack on and drag a sled. I put a heavy backpack on, pick up weights as best I could and carry them. This example was a bear hug carry. So I'm bear hug carrying a weight. I got a heavy backpack on, dragging a sled in the snow. So what you all know as loaded carries, and a lot of people thought that they've been around your whole life. That's when I invented those.
Wow, that's super interesting. This is actually, I'd like to go down this road with you now because a lot of the people I'm working with now are late 50s, 60s, really struggling. But a lot of times they'll go to the doctor with some sort of an injury. The doctor's like, yeah, avoid stuff. And then they get weaker, they get higher risk, and like falls and all these things become more of an issue. Do you like what advice do you have? And this a lot of times these people haven't done anything for 20 years, maybe 30 years, then they have a fall, then they get scared. Um, and it's a vicious pattern. Like there's a crazy statistic, hip break over 65, 20% mortality rate in 1 year after that happens. That
I thought
is,
I thought it was 25, but okay. Either way, right? It's
yeah.
it's a good chance you're going to die.
Mm,
So I teach over at the senior center here in town, which is kind of funny because I'm older than a lot of the people who take the classes,
yeah.
which is kind of funny. Couple things. Uh, Connor, you got to bring me over to a workshop because this is a big part of my workshop.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, first off, I think there's real value in the work Tim Anderson does with original strength. So look up original strength and pressing reset and these ideas of doing these, you do these easy movements like neck nods, and then neck nods translate into rocking on the ground to doing cross crawls, to crawling, to walking, with a proper gait pattern. Really, for most people, and I hope you follow what I just said. First, there's a couple things. First off, we got to get them back to movement of any kind. But I would, you ratchet it down. I mean, I have a whole, I have a whole program for people who just want to sit in a chair and do this, and just do these movements like this and do these cross crawls and do stuff like that in a chair. If that's what we get, if a chair is what I get, I'm taking the chair. But after a while, when people do, okay, what I'm doing, my right hand is touching my left knee, my left hand is touching my right knee, and my knees are coming up to attack. Don't worry about it. My knees are coming up to attack my hand. Okay. Well, from there, maybe we move to the ground. Now, when I say let's get on the ground, most people my age are like down there. But if you look at my Instagram, you'll see me rolling around with puppies, with my grandchildren. By the way, the most popular Instagrams I've ever done were rolling with my grandson and rolling with puppies, corgi puppies, which is just, I don't know if you can pull it up. I don't know, but they are hilarious. So you got to get on the ground. You got to get on the
Yeah.
ground. You got to get up, get on the ground, get back up, get on the ground, get back up. So you need to do movements. You need to have the ground as part of your training program. Okay. That the ground has to be part of what you do. The issue, I don't know how we're doing on time. Maybe Connor, next time we get together, let's start with this question and then let's really, really, really build on it. Okay. All
I'd
right.
like it maybe to be the whole podcast because I think it's so, especially because of your 67, and a lot of people are like, oh, I'm too old, or and it's like you're like, look at me, I'm fine, you
I got
know.
an Olympic up to meet in a month. Yeah. Yeah. A
You
month
know
from
what I mean?
month from today, I'm on the platform again. Yeah. Jeez.
You're 67, man. I
Yeah.
saw this in Southeast Asia as well. I lived there for 2 years. People in their 60s, 70s, 80s, squatting, no problem. Sitting on the ground, no problem, because they just never stopped, right?
Well, that's so. You remember that 1 out of 20 thing? So
Mm,
one of the people that's a 19 out of 20 and is given a death sentence by a doctor, and now they want to exercise, I still help them, but you've got to at least appreciate what's going on in the back of my mind. What's going on in the back of my mind is where the hell have you been for the last 40 years? I get this all the time with body composition clients, fat loss clients. People say to me, well, once I put my mind to it, I know I'll lose weight. Well, where the hell's your mind been? Where's your mind been for 40 years? Don't tell me that. You just didn't do it. And the one thing about movement, and I love, Tim has a phrase called movement snacks. I like that phrase.
Mm.
So throughout the day, you should have little movement snacks. Yesterday was our rucking day. And that's when I put on a heavy backpack and I walk with the heavy hands in my hands. When I got back, I put on a heavier backpack and I mowed my lawns. I've taken up mowing my lawn again because I want the exercise. So do you kilos or pounds? Which one do you use?
Kilos. Yeah.
Okay. So I have a 16-kilo backpack while I'm mowing my lawn for 2 hours. And it was a relatively warm day here. So I finish. So I've just finished rucking. Then I ruck lawn mow. And then I sit down and all of a sudden I'm like, holy cow, I'm tired. And then, so what do? Well, you get up and I just started doing some gardening work. So I acknowledged that I was tired from all of that, but I also knew that I had to, I'm just getting ready for the summer here in Utah. It's very, very hot here in Utah. I live in the high desert, so it's very hot, but we also have the Winter Olympics here. So lots of snow, lots of heat, and it's crazy weather patterns. So in the summer, if you got to have a garden that's uh, it's going to get a lot of sun and a lot of hot weather. So you have to prepare for that. So it takes a few. So uh, every day I do a little bit of gardening, and over time my garden looks quite nice. So I think, so for me, the best thing you can do is movement snacks. Is to, maybe in the morning you sit in a chair and you do this kind of thing. Go for a walk. While you're walking, add a little extra movement in. Um, Go over to the gym. Don't do a 4-hour workout on day one. Push, pull, hinge squat, loaded carry. Just do some, you know, I was talking with a famous sprint coach yesterday, and we're joking about 2 sets of 8, which a lot of people did in the 1970s for training. 2 sets of 8. But by the way, these were super athletes. 2 sets of 8. I mean, first off, that's just a weird number to me, that 2 sets, but you don't need to do much if you want to be extraordinary. It doesn't take
Mm.
much. Did you floss your teeth today? Because if you did, you're ahead of 19 out of 20 people. And so the idea when it comes to training any population is to just nudge them towards minimal, but little and often over the long haul. A little bit, several times a day over the long haul. A little bit, several times a week over the long haul. One of the standards in my gym, I call it 5 by 52. 5 days a week, 52 weeks a year. If you commit to 5 days a week, 3 by 52 is fine also. 2 by 52 is great. You know what? 1 by 52 is okay too. But if you commit to 5 by 52, how many of those workouts have to be the greatest workout of all time? None. None of them. Because you're just going to have this, 260 opportunities a year to nudge yourself a little bit better. And that, my friend, is the secret, if there is a secret.
Amazing, Dan. That's such good advice. Like you just can't hear that. And I guess it's the same for finances. Put away a bit every week.
It's funny you say that, because every Saturday at noon, people come to my house and we have a financial intentional community. Okay, it's called Mumpers. So my gym is intentional community. People from all the world just show up at my house at 9:30. Everybody's welcome to work out with me. And it's ideal because you never know how many people are going to show up. You never know what we're going to do until everybody's there. You never, in fact, and things will change in a heartbeat sometimes.
That's every Saturday, the workout, is it? Or
I know
every Tuesday?
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday is the workout, and then
Wow.
Saturday is the financial meeting. So because of my financial meeting, I decided to start this little savings plan in late January. Well, I have accumulated so much money in that little thing since January in this little savings account. It's a very large number. And I look at it and it's like, what did you, I mean, I looked at the number the other day and I was like, where did this come from? Well, because I've been just tossing in a little money. I just been pressing buttons on my phone. You know, I press this button and I press that button. I put in an amount and then magically the money goes into the savings thing. There's no thinking. I go like this and the money goes over there. Well, in just a few months, I use it for my emergency fund. I'm going to speak in dollars, but for years the advice was you should always have enough money in an emergency fund to fix a hot water heater, which is about $1,500. I don't know what it would be in Swiss francs, euros, pounds, or whatever, wherever you are today. What money are you using this week?
For me here in Romania, lei,
Like,
Romanian lei. Yeah.
not even euros. Okay.
No.
So I don't know how many lei that is, but it's so, but then recently some people have been saying, you know, maybe it should be a spot higher than a water heater. Like, for example, if you ever have your tire, you get a flat tire and the guy says you need all 4 new tires. That's what an emergency fund should be. If you just throw a little bit in for a couple of weeks, you'll have enough in your emergency. Little, often, long haul. And so our financial group, we sit down and we remind each other those basic, simple lessons. I've had a tough couple 5 years in my personal life, and yet today, as I speak to you, I'm the most financially set of my entire life. And I was in desperate straits 3 years ago because of the same principles we use in the weight room, we apply to finance. And I don't know if there's any miracles or secrets what I just said, but it's all true.
Yeah, Dan, it's just that I appreciate this so much about your approach, because it's always you're drumming the same ideas, like consistency, making it manageable. And I think that concept you said, like 5 by 52, is so important, because some days it's going to be 5 or 10 minutes. Some days it'll be 45 minutes. If you want to do 5 days a week, it has to be small and consistent and sustainable.
My first day in England, I walked 9 miles. No offense, but that's not sustainable for me. You know, I can't just walk over to a beautiful place like Richmond and Twickenham and then just meander for a day. I mean, I certainly could here, I guess, but you know, I got to mow the lawn, I got to feed the dogs, I got to talk to Connor on a podcast. I got things. And so sometimes it's 9-mile walks and sometimes it's a half-hour walk. And please, and just stop there. Don't judge one better than the other. In fact, I argue this, Connor, and just remember this for your clients and your listeners. I sometimes think those 15-minute days are better than those 9-mile days, because sometimes elbowing out that 10 to 15 minutes and accomplishing that work long term, at the back of your mind, you're like, hell, if I can get 15 minutes on a day like today, how much can I get done when, you know, everything's kind of lining up perfectly for my workout? It's just an idea, but I think it's true.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest one, is just understanding how to keep the chain connected every week, regardless of how little or how much you do.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Well, Dan, I appreciate your time, mate. I know we have been on for the hour, and I guess I'd like to know where you could send people, in particular, that population we're talking about. I'd like to maybe send them to your website, or if you've something specifically there, I think that would be really good, and I can link that.
Well, I've got danjohnuniversity.com. Make sure you look it up. It's a great site. And the best thing for people on the site is something called the workout generator, where the first question it asks you is, what equipment do you have? Don't worry if you don't have any, because there's programs for that. How many days a week do you want to train? How intense do you want to train? And then it spits out this program to you. You then can adjust it even more with exercise selection. You can adjust it, you can adjust it, you can adjust it, and it'll just keep spitting back, and it'll give you a program that you can do today. I mean, with no equipment or at the best facility in the world. Okay. So danjohnuniversity.com. I've got some books there. danjohnuniversity.com/bookstore. And I got a new book out on bodybuilding, hypertrophy. But yeah, thank you for doing that, Connor. I really appreciate that.
Thank you so much, mate. And yeah, in particular, I think for coaches as well, we said this last time, but like if you're a coach, the workout generator is like unbelievable. Like
Yeah,
I wish I
great
had that
feeling.
like 10 years ago. It's phenomenal. Yeah.
If
So
I
for
was a
people, but
personal,
also coaches.
if I was a personal trainer, I wouldn't ever. I've already done all the hard work for you.
Yeah,
I can
exactly.
by the way, in the way the computer works, you know, it sounds strange because I kind of seem so like I'm all over the place, but the easiest courses I ever took in my life were geometry and any of the logic philosophy courses. My brain just goes, my brain just is a very boom, boom, if then, if then, if then. What's cool about the generator, it is my brain. They AI'd my brain somehow, but it's a lot more patient than I am. So that's nice.
Yeah.
You're marvelous, Connor. And
Amazing.
I hope to meet you in person sometime. Maybe there in Clare. We'll take you to Lahinge with the best Olympic lifting spot in the county Clare.
Well, genuinely, that workshop idea, mate, I think that is definitely something that I'd like to look into because that's really needed. Like I'm really shocked with the numbers and the issues. And I think yeah, I think that would be an amazing just tour for you to do like everywhere, to be honest.
Organize it, and I'm on my way. Okay.
Awesome, mate.
We'll talk soon. All right.
Thanks, Dan.